Welcome to Speed Vector, the podcast dedicated to the art, risk, and obsession of speed flying. I'm your host, Victor Garcia, speed flyer, skydiver, cinematographer, Navy veteran, and full-time gravity junkie. Every week, we dive into the lines we fly, the gear we trust, and the stories that push us past the ridge and into the void. Whether you're just learning to launch or chasing the perfect line, this is where speed flyers come to connect, learn, and stoke the fire. This is Speed Vector. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Speed Vector podcast. This is episode number 17, and this is Full Send Friday, episode 3. I was not sure what I was going to talk about this morning when I woke up, but I knew I was going to do a podcast, and thankfully the stars aligned, and I have a pretty special show for you today. So, a man by the name of Patrick Hennessy, if you don't know, you should know. He's an absolute living legend in the speed flying world, also a really great guy. Posted something on his Instagram just about an hour ago that I think is worth reading. Not only everybody should go read it, but I think it's worth reading for the podcast. I actually haven't read the whole thing yet, and I'm going to right now, so just bear with me. So it's a love letter to the speed flying community. Please read and share. Dear speed flying friends, if you haven't noticed, we've had a dramatic increase in injuries and deaths lately. I want to talk about it in hopes that we can all take a step back and make smarter choices. The reason I'm writing this is because I care about all of you as well as our reputation as pilots. I try to be a positive influence with my flying and love watching talented new pilots progress, but I want people to realize that I've slowly progressed over 14 years, not 2. I flew a 14-meter Fraser for 4 years before I started downsizing. I was also skydiving, packing parachutes, and learning to paraglide. I wanted to learn as much about canopies as I possibly could to be able to feel confident in my abilities. I see way too many pilots skipping those steps and just thinking they can do what they see on Instagram in 1 or 2 years. I've made mistakes as well, and I've had injuries, but I learned from them. Most of what I've been seeing lately is all very avoidable. If people would slow down to think about what they are doing and the consequences if they should do it wrong, I feel like more of our friends would be with us today. I want everyone to really think about why they do this sport and what it means to them. For me, it's a form of meditation that allows me to be fully focused and connected with nature. To be fully focused and to make good decisions, I have to be aware of what I might be going through in life. If there is any kind of outside stress creeping in, or keeping me rather from performing at that level, then I will keep it chill or not fly at all. If you are letting your ego or social media influence your decision making, then you're definitely not flying for the right reasons. If you are already thinking about how you're going to post it before you've even flown, you're not doing it for yourself. I highly suggest leaving the camera at home for a bit if that's the case. I took a year off of using my GoPro some years back, and it was the best decision I've made. It was the best decision ever. I know it's exciting and people get stoked on the adrenaline rush, but letting your hunger for more adrenaline guide you is just going to get you in trouble. Ultimately, I want people to think about why they fly, if that reason helps promote good decision or bad decisions. Here are some basic tips on how to avoid other common accidents I've been seeing. Be meticulous with everything you do and always double check your equipment thoroughly before flying. I personally recommend getting good at looking up at your wing to check that it looks proper before committing to launch. You can always stop and fix a problem before launching, but you can't always fix it in the air. Make a plan in your head before flying a line. Think about what could go wrong and what your backup plan would be if it does. Be really aware of the weather. Check for obstacles like cables or power lines, and if you don't like it, don't fly it. Know your abilities and stay well within them. It's better to be less confident than you are capable versus being overly confident when you still have lots to learn. Lastly, don't let yourself feel like you're not cool because you didn't fly a line as deep as someone else or didn't get that swoop on the landing. You're fucking flying, and that's cool enough without making it more dangerous. So please, friends, take your time with your progression. Maybe upsize your wing if you're feeling sketchy. Do it for yourself and not for anyone else. Think about your friends and loved ones and do your best to make good decisions. This sport can be done sustainably. In the end, it's up to you whether you want to make it dangerous or not. Much love and fly safe. Sincerely, Patrick Hennessy. Wow. Wow. That just gave me goosebumps like 10 times while I read that. And that was the first time I read it through. I read the first half of the first slide basically, and I stopped and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go set up the recording equipment real quick and get this out because honestly, like, he's right. And coming from that guy who is like at the top of the sport and has been, I mean, he said it himself, he's been doing it for 14 years. Like the Fraser, 14-meter Fraser, are you kidding me? For 4 years? Man, he's talking to me. He's talking to you. He's talking to everybody. And the post itself is interesting because he tags a lot of people that are at the top of the sport. I mean, he tags Jamie Lee. He tags Pro Speedfly School, which, you know, if you're not, I forget their names, I apologize, but if you're not familiar with them, I mean, they're also living legends. It's a husband wife, I believe, or at least they're, you know, partners. I don't know. And they're doing some awesome work to get good information out there online. Never in place of, you know, proper instruction in person, right? I mean, you can only learn so much on YouTube, but it's not like how it used to be where, you know, if you wanted to teach yourself how to like forward launch, you would just try to find a clip of someone forward launching and then mimic it. I was that guy. You know, it's easy to let ego get in the way of this stuff because it's a very ego driven sport. All of these sports are. I mean, think about it. Like, you're willingly throwing yourself off of a mountain with a tiny, even in the bigger sizes, a tiny piece of nylon over your head, a bed sheet essentially, with some thin lines onto a backpack that reverses into a harness. And we're flying down these mountains and hooting and hollering the whole way. And it's awesome. But like, it takes some ego. And I am fully guilty of allowing ego to push me forward in a manner that maybe was irresponsible. And I fully take the blame for that. I've always prided myself in not allowing social media to be the driver for me. I'm also, you know, 33 years old, so I'm not old by any stretch, but, you know, compared to generations after mine, where social media was present from, you know, as early as they can remember, that's not the case for me. I remember when MySpace came out. I remember when Facebook came out. I was in high school, and it was cool. And then YouTube, you know, came out, and it used to be totally different than it is now. I would say not even the same kind of platform. And now it is what it is. And I post my flights. And I've said on the podcast before that I post them as a way to look back on them in the future because it's easy to lose stuff in your camera roll. It's easy to lose stuff, you know, in the GoPro app or the Insta360 app. And it's just like a bulletin board. That's partly true. Sure. That's what I tell myself. But is that the truth? Maybe not. Maybe I want people to see that, like, I'm cool. Or like, hey, look what I'm doing. I'm rad. Or even I'm way radder than you because this is what I'm doing. That's not how I feel, right? But what's the intention? It's a good question. Something to reflect on. Something I'm going to reflect on for sure. And does that mean that I'm going to stop posting stuff on my Instagram? No, of course not. I'm going to, because like I said, like, the main reason I do it is so I can go back and look at it in a year or next week or whatever. And I'm stoked on it because it's cool. It's a way to show yourself that you're progressing. It's a way to show your peers that you're progressing. I talked about this a little bit with Josh the other day on the last episode. And it's this thing that humans do where we seek our peers' approval. And that's like ingrained in us. It's not something that you decide to do. It's not like a choice. It's like, no, that's just like human nature. And it's okay, right? But you have to keep that in check. You have to be mindful of that. You have to be aware that you are seeking your peers' approval. Now, who are our peers? Our peers are our friends. Our peers are our family. Our peers are fellow pilots. Our peers are Instagram, TikTok, right? YouTube, maybe Facebook. I don't know. Maybe not anymore. But so just be aware that your ego and your desire, your innate desire to be accepted by your peers is present. And do not ever find yourself on a launch where or coming into swoop or flying a line where you are doing it for that. Just be aware of it, right? Because it's there. It's ever present. You're never going to get rid of that. It's ingrained in every single human being, being accepted by your peers. I don't know where I read it or where I heard it, and it could just be like hearsay, but I'm almost certain that it is like one of the X amount of essential basic needs, right? Food, water, shelter, accepted by your peers. I don't know how accurate that is, but I honestly, like, I wholeheartedly believe that. Like, of course, and I'm going to transition here a little bit, just through my head, there were some points that he made that I wanted to touch on, and without going back and reading it again, and having not taken any notes, having not read it prior to, I'm just going to kind of go for it here. But sorry, the dogs are probably barking at the mailman. Anyway, um, downsizing. So I came from skydiving where I was flying a fairly small canopy, close to 100 square feet. And I was doing small turns to swoop. So 90s, sometimes 180s, working on 270s. I would say 200, maybe, 200-degree turns was pretty much like where I stopped, and then started speed flying. But predominantly I was doing 90s and getting a decent swoop, right? And when I came to speed flying, I was swooping a 15-meter Spitfire further with the same turn. And then I was like, well, this is boring because I want to fly faster. I want to swoop farther. I've exceeded the limitations of this wing. So I went from a 15-meter down to an 11-meter. And that 11-meter was perfect. I felt like it wasn't hard to launch. It wasn't too fast, but it was way faster. And it wasn't like I never felt like I was behind the curve with that wing. So I flew that probably like 150 flights. And then I took 4 months off for ski season, did a couple of speed ride days, but really I was skiing with a wing over my head. I was like working on just making turns with the wing over my head and not necessarily flying. So different, right? Totally. I mean, you're getting time under your wing, but totally different. And then I came back. Ski season ended like mid-April, at least for work. I kept skiing, but I wasn't going there every day for work. So I had more time to fly. I took a month and a half off before I started working again. And I did about 100 flights on that 11. And then I got a 9-meter. And I did about 100 flights on that. And then I started flying the line. I did just under 50 flights on the line and broke my leg. Now, I've reflected on this quite a bit over the last 4 months and you guys have heard about it ad nauseum if you've been listening since the beginning, or if you've gone back and listened to previous podcasts. I blame it on the airbag for rolling me forward. But with that being said, had I been flying the 11-meter, it would not have happened. So is it the wing's fault? No. At the end of the day, I take full responsibility for mistakes that I make and for victories that I have when it comes to this sport. And I try to do that across my entire life because obviously, taking responsibility for your actions is important. You can't blame other things, but it is also important to reflect on why things happen or how they happened. One factor in my accident is that I was wearing a piece of gear that I'm not used to, and it rolled me forward um, as I was approaching coming to a stop. And so, yeah, that's a factor. But let's unpack that just a little bit further. What if it wasn't the airbag? What if it was my lack of appreciation or my lack of understanding, my lack of knowledge, what that airbag would do if I happen to try to like slide on my butt, right? So it's my fault. That's what I'm saying. If I didn't have the airbag on, would that have happened? No. Had I been flying a bigger wing, would that have happened? No. Had I chosen to not fly anymore that day because it was getting thermic, which is what I should have done because it was getting thermic, the answer is no, it wouldn't have happened. But would something of worse have happened down the line because I would have continued on that progression path, that rushed path? It doesn't matter. It truly doesn't matter. You could be a sky god in the skydiving world doing, 820s or whatever, huge turns and swooping at 100 miles per hour. Speed flying is different. Now, that's obviously at the top end of skydiving, swooping, right? So maybe that person, could potentially fly a small wing right out the gate. And I respect it. But for me, it was too quick. It was way too fast. Like, I enjoy so much the act of doing the sport of speed flying that it shouldn't matter if I'm flying a 15 meter or an 11 or a 13 versus a 9, or a line, which is significantly faster than a 9 meter. Like, to be honest, I mean, it's outrageously fast. It's super fun, but like outrageously fast. Like, what's the rush? What is the rush? And I learned a huge lesson, and that is that you might think you're dialed, you might be current, but if you don't have thousands of reps, and if you haven't like nerded out over this stuff, which I have, right? But what I'm missing is the thousands of reps part. I'm approaching 1,000, okay, total between skydiving and speed flying. But approaching 1,000 is not the same as thousands, right? I'm talking like plural, multiple thousands. Is it not cool to swoop 30 meters versus 130 meters? Like, I'll tell you what, like the feeling of swooping a line is insane. It is amazing. But at what cost? At what cost? I mean, it's nice putting a small wing into your stash bag after a flight. It's nice laying out a wing where it's so small that the lines don't touch the ground. Like, I love it, right? It's an awesome feeling. It's just easier on the ground. But as soon as you leave the ground, you better know damn well what you're doing. And you better be really freaking good at it and really second nature, because I'll tell you right now, I only broke my leg and I've been out for 4 months, and it has been a very difficult 4 months in at times. Like, I've had good moments, right? But my entire life stopped. I mean, not my entire life, my entire physical life stopped. I was on the couch with an above the knee cast in a crap ton of pain, by the way, for 9.5 weeks. And then here I am 4 months later, since injury, just learning how to walk, trying to build strength back up in my entire body, not just my leg. And I'm not saying it's not worth it. It is. It's totally worth it. But I just broke my leg. It's just a leg. I didn't break my back. I didn't die. And what I'm saying is that what I'm trying to say is that I rushed my progression, which is what Patrick was talking about. It's not about, I think numbers matter in speed flying, but I think time matters more. And because we're so limited on time, and what do I mean by that? I mean, like, how long is your average speed flight? A minute, minute and a half? Big flight, minute and a half. It's huge. My average flight is probably 45 seconds, and I'm ripping, like, in the terrain, carving turns around obstacles, swooping 100 meters, going 70 miles per hour. My hair's on fire. My feet, my shoes are smoking, you know? I wish. Maybe not, actually. That's not a lot of time. It really isn't. Just add it up, man. Look at your logbook, think back. How many flights do you have? You know, times it by 45 seconds, divide by 60, whatever the math is. It's not a lot of time. So 1 to 2 years of flying, 1 to 2 years is not a lot of time. I'm a baby in this sport. I'm young. And I'd like to do this for the next 20 years at least. So what's the move? Upsize. Take a step back, right? Reflect. Be intentional about what you're doing. Double, triple check that all of your gear is good before you leave the ground. Like Patrick said, get used to looking up at your wing and making sure it's good before you launch. You can do that. You can do that on a zero launch or zero wind launch. You could potentially do it on a cliff launch. I wouldn't recommend doing it. I wouldn't recommend cliff launching, but you could glance up. Get your eyes used to looking up at your wing and making sure that your lines are good, making sure you don't have a stick caught in, your lines, making sure you don't have a tension knot. You can see all of this. It's like very obvious and you can feel it, but normally you don't feel it until you're in the air. Make sure your trim is equal before you leave the ground, before you even start your launch. Make sure that your carabiners are locked and correctly oriented. Make sure you don't have a twist in your risers. Make sure you don't have a twist in your lines. Lay your wing out perfectly. Even if it's windy and it keeps blowing around, lay it out perfectly. Does it take an extra 2 minutes? Just be diligent because it can all change in an instant. And I'm telling you, it's not fun when it happens. And I just broke my leg. There have been a lot of accidents this summer, a lot across the world. Obviously, a lot in Europe because it's a hotbed. There's a lot of pilots there, a lot of people flying there, a lot of people traveling to fly there. There's been a lot of accidents in the US. There have been deaths. Don't be a statistic. Listen to Pat. Take my advice for what it's worth, Understand that I'm young in this sport. I'm young in skydiving. I've only been at it for 5 years and I haven't even jumped in the last year. So like I've only been doing canopy sports technically since 2015, which would be 10 years, but I took like a 4-year gap. So I just count from 2020. So young. Understand who is passing this information to you and understand that I'm not pulling this stuff out of my butt. That's why I don't get on here and preach like I'm the bee's knees, like I'm the savior of speed flying. Like I know my place in this sport. My intention with this podcast is to have guys on like Patrick that and Todd and Josh and like these people that like have been doing this stuff for a long time, that have seen a lot and that beat the odds, right? Because they did it right. And Patrick even said in his post, like, he's been hurt, he's been injured, he's been on the receiving end of this, but he learned from them. So learn from your mistakes, even if they're small mistakes, even if you get away with it, even if you don't even get a bruise. Learn from your mistakes. Don't make them twice. Be diligent. And remember, like, this is for fun. We do this because it's fun. So don't make it not fun. That's super deep, right? We do it for fun. Don't make it not fun. I mean, it's true though, right? Like don't take an awesome day and make it the worst day of your life or your friends and family's lives. Because at that point, you've crossed the line of it being fun to it being stupid and not worth it. He said this sport can be done sustainably, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. And what he means is it can be done safely, it can be done properly. But when you make bad decisions, when you hastily downsize, when you get in over your head, that's when it becomes super dangerous. And my hope is that you, the listeners, and me, that we are never in a position where we're backed into a corner and we have to do something that we've never done before to get out of it alive or in one piece. Yeah. Strong words. I was going to talk about some other stuff today, but I honestly think I'm just going to leave it at that. Let that resonate a little bit. I'm going to reflect on it. I'm going to go back and read it again and do some reflecting. And I can promise you that you won't see me flying a small wing for a while. I'm going to try to pull some strings, maybe do some big bargaining and pleading for a bigger wing, and I'm going to have a damn good time because it's going to be within my ability level, my experience level, and it doesn't eliminate all risk, but it does slow it down a little, which I think it just gives you more time to correct mistakes and to have fun. And remember, that's, like I said, that's what this is all about. That's why we do this. It's fun. It's awesome. It's an amazing feeling. And my hope is that you never lose that. And that the reason that you do this sport is that reason, because you love it and you can't imagine not doing it. That's where I'm at. All right, guys. Until next time. Thanks so much for being here.